So, something that I feel like a lot of us have seen show up in other people's businesses and, sometimes our own is this need to control everything. And I think as an entrepreneur, it can be really tempting to, you built your business from the ground up, it's your baby, and you want to keep a tight hold of those reins, right? And you want to steer it in the direction that you want it to go. But especially as you grow, I think it's interesting to see how it plays out when you still try to maintain control of every aspect of it. And again, this is something we see with a lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with, that we've spoken to. And so we kind of just want to get into the issue of control issues with entrepreneurs and their businesses.
Especially when the people, like when you're working in a team of of people who like to be in control, right? But that's like
Exactly.
we were talking about before. It's like the type of person who wants to start their own business typically is somebody who is more of a
Type
perfectionist,
A.
often,
Yeah.
right? Like not always,
Mhm.
right? There are different types, but if you're listening to this, probably most people who are attracted to me are like that, like type A perfectionist. Like, I want to be in control. I know how to get this done. A lot of that is like having learned if I don't do it, everybody does a worse job than me. Like having that, you're probably the person that did the group project in school. Like you just have these different experiences, right? You're probably there. Might have been the parent more so than the parents themselves. Like a lot of those issues from childhood, those all teach us like I'm safer when I stay in control, right? Um I can control the outcome if I control everything that's going on, right? Or
Yeah.
even with health issues as well, right? When we experience things in our lives, like this could be a health issue, this could be a loss, right? That you didn't see coming. Like whenever there are life experiences that we perceive as that just came out of the blue and it totally rocks my world, a lot of those, controlling tendencies can pop up as a way to keep ourselves safe, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Mhm.
I'm going to do whatever I can to ensure that this doesn't happen again, right? Because it's a trauma response essentially. Um, and so I know that, well, I know that the path of entrepreneurship is one of the most healing paths, right? Because you face so many of your wounds. There's the level of expansion and personal growth um, is unparalleled in many ways. Like, right? It's like you have to be dedicated to that personal growth, and you're going to come up against your triggers. And one of the most common things, like, is releasing the control. Right? We can't
Mhm.
we can't control everybody around us, and I think it's even more so when you're building a team, right? I know when I first started my business and it was really just me, I could get by with a lot of the behaviors. I mean, I definitely still got triggered in different ways because there are always factors that are outside of us. But then once I started like hiring different contractors or like collaborating with people, it really came up. And definitely learning experiences. And then we have like I mean the dynamics here, right?
Mhm.
It's like um it's been it's like a growth point, right? Like I've had conversations with Kelsey a lot. I'm like, I need to release this. Like it's really hard for me to release it. It's easier for me to get in and micromanage everything. And so, and I used to do that. And then the things that happened with the people supporting me, I wasn't being supported because I wasn't letting myself be supported. And they weren't given the opportunity to grow themselves. Right. Because
Mhm.
I was like, I just created a pattern because I was micromanaging and they got used to, oh, Christina's just going to come in and plan everything. And then I just like do what she says. And so I was really like like it was disempowering. Right. And that was a way that I wasn't allowing myself to be supported and it wasn't helpful for anybody really. And so now I'm much more aware of, and this is for sure something like for me with my coaches and masterminds I'm in and learning from people who have, very successful businesses, right? 7, 8 figure business owners. A lot of what we talk about in there are these dynamics. Like what energy are you in? And are you over controlling everything? Are you letting your team support you? Right? Are you letting other people actually do their jobs? And that's something for sure. Like we've had a lot of conversations about. I'm like, I could do this, but I'm going to resist my temptation. I just had this conversation with one of my friends earlier this week. I was like, we are talking about how it's like, okay, I could do that task and finish it by tomorrow. And I like things speedy. So everything in me wants to go finish it so it's done. But then I'm not letting that person do their job. And so it's actually better if I just let it take a little bit longer. Um, so that they do it and we're like keeping everybody in their positions, Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah. And I feel like that ends up being more efficient in the long run anyway.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Because then you're not like
Totally.
wondering like what am I supposed to do versus not.
Mm-hmm.
And you can funnel all of your attention and focus to what you know that you have to get done
Yeah,
as part of
totally.
your role.
Letting people in too, like they have to do that trial and error piece of starting working with you. Like they have to learn how
Yeah.
you like to do things, and no one's a mind reader. Like so many VAs try to start their business and they're like, I have to know how to do everything in this client's business before I even start. And it's like, how are you supposed to know the back end of their business? Like they need to teach you how to
Yeah.
run it, you know? And
Yeah.
people do have that grasp of like, it's my baby, but I see that a lot.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, and it takes a couple months to really like understand, like at least a couple months, right? Like to get
Mhm.
to just like understand the flow of the business, how it works, how this person likes things. Um, and that's important to know, right? When you hire people, like you have to be committed to letting it work for a few months, because there's a whole learning curve
Mhm.
for them too. I'm curious, Abby, like how you see this playing out, like supporting different people. Where does that come up?
Pretty much every discovery call that I have with a client, they are scared out of their mind to pass anything off to me, and that's okay. And I really have to remind them like this is going to give you more freedom to do the things in your business that you actually like doing, and that there are other people that can do what you're doing, and some people can do it better. Just because like if you put everything in a million different cups, like you're not filling them all the way. So
Mhm.
there's a huge trust building with every single client that I take on. And it is sometimes 3 months, sometimes a year. It really depends on how much someone is willing to let go. And that's really why, like, I start most of my packages off really low hours. Like, let's start with one task, see how that goes. And if you feel good, I'll take it on. If not, we'll adjust, like it's sometimes it has to be baby steps. And then I get other clients that are like, I'm so freaking overwhelmed. Like, take everything and just help me. So
Mhm.
there's huge different ends of the spectrum for sure.
What's like easiest for you to work with or like most helpful for you, like the energy of the client for you? Like what's most helpful?
Um, I definitely like, I'm also kind of a control freak a little bit. So I really resonate with someone who feels the same way in their business. And to me, like, I would rather tackle one thing at a time and perfect that so that they feel good about it than take on everything at one time and try and juggle like fixing everything.
Mhm.
So like that calm energy where they're like, okay, I'm serious about getting help. Let's go. Like that's an ideal client for me.
Mm. Do you like having more independence or do you like more like them just telling you exactly how they want it?
I think starting off, it's good to hear their perspective on how they've been running it so far.
Mhm.
But I, in my corporate job, was an auditor. So I love to look into a process and be like, this isn't working. This can be improved and tweak things. So a lot of times I start off doing it the way they want it and then kind of offer suggestions as to what I see. And typically they're far enough removed from it. They're like, I trust you. Let's try it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I just asked because I know different people like different things, you
Mhm.
know? So just like knowing the VA too and like the type of energy you want in your business for sure. I feel like
Mhm.
this is the thing. I like because I've supported other businesses in different ways and I tried that and I was just way too much of a control freak to do it because they would be like this is what we're going to do and I'd be like no it's not that's not the way right and I was just like I couldn't I was like I literally can't do this supportive task because I want to run this.
Yeah. I know how that goes. You gotta reel it in, girl.
Yeah, I was just like not it just like wasn't the role for me. Um but yeah, I'm curious, Kelsey, for you, like, how do you feel that it's played out? Like, I think both of us definitely have some control stuff.
I don't know about the control piece. I mean, I definitely like with us for sure, there was a
Mhm.
trust building period, like anyone who'd be
Mhm.
starting. And like, yeah, I mean, we didn't know anything really. I mean, I knew about you because I was a follower, but you didn't know anything about me hiring me. It's not like I was a connection or like someone referred me to you. So especially that part, I think it did take me a little longer to earn your trust. Um, but I feel like, I don't know, yeah, that like we've come a long way in the
Mhm.
last several months. And I think that trust piece, that building piece is definitely necessary to get to where we are now, which is I feel like we're very comfortable with doing our own tasks. And obviously there's still collaboration, but
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think it's been like a hindrance at all.
Yeah. So I think that the key for me has been like where it works, right? Is if you have different people who all like they like it to go their way, right? Or right when they're controlling like in different areas, right? So for example, there are a lot of things that I'm like, it needs to be done this way. And I think it's pretty clear what those things are. But then there are a lot of things where I'm like, I actually don't care, so you can control this, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like, and that's where it like evens out. And so it's easier because I'm like, I don't even care. So like you can organize that, right? Like I couldn't give a shit how the Google Drive is organized, but
Oh,
like
but I
oh,
like need
yeah.
it to be color
Yeah.
coded.
Me
Kelsey over
too.
here is gonna organize it and color
You
code.
ever
Like, and
go
I'm
in
like,
there, it's like an explosion of colors.
yeah.
But
And I'm like, that's totally fine, right? So it's like picking and choosing my battles. And this goes back to like what is my role in the business? Like what is my job? Right. And then what is this person's job? Like what is this person's job? And like letting them fully like control their aspect because that's why we
yeah.
hired them.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And let them
It,
control it and see how it
yeah.
goes. And like you might be surprised that something that you were completely opposed to at the beginning actually ends up being a better system than what you had before.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, and that also goes into like something that is just like connected to what Abby was saying before, but like that always stood out to me from um, some friends I have who've just built incredible businesses. Like they would always say, like the way I built so quickly is I I as soon as I can, I hire and I make a point to hire somebody who can do this better than me. Like, and
Mhm.
I just keep doing that. I just keep doing that. Um, and where I know I have done this before, and I point this out to a lot of my clients where it's like what people will often do is, and this actually just came up in a mastermind I'm in because everybody was like, oh yeah, I do that. Like people will sometimes when they're like controlling or like they don't want to let go of their baby, right? They will hire people that they have to micromanage, right? Or who like they have to fully train and like really manage as a way of not letting themselves be supported because then they have to still be in control, right? So then we complain, oh, this person's
Mm-hmm.
not supporting me, but it's like, well, you just hired somebody who actually isn't at the skill level that you needed, really, right? As this like subconscious self-sabotage and to keep yourself in this manager role, you know?
Yeah.
I totally just did that.
Yeah, it's a
Oopsie.
common thing, you know,
Yeah.
that we don't even realize that we're doing. But then it's like you get in the cycle of being like, I don't feel supported. It's like, well, I didn't hire somebody that could actually fully support me, right?
Mhm.
So it's like when I'm choosing people who can help support me, I'm like, okay, this person has to know more about this than me and like do this better than me because then I feel safe like giving them their reign and they have more room to grow and explore. Um, and they actually grow in that role rather than always needing me to do things, which isn't even like helpful for people. Um, so that was definitely, I think that's it was such a great piece of advice that's just always stuck with me. Like I've learned so much about hiring. I think that was like a huge growth
Yeah.
pain in building a business.
I feel like that shows up everywhere. That's very interesting.
Hmm. And just very common with the person who starts the company wanting to always be in everything else. And it's like
Mhm.
you're not letting them do their job.
Right. Like you're hiring because you want to grow, right? Well, then
Hmm.
you also have to make sure that you're allowing yourself to grow by actually handing it off to someone else. If you're still
Mhm.
in there 80% of the time, like that's an energy leak.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've been interviewing for someone to help me in my business. I hired someone and fired someone already, as Kelsey knows, because I did what you just described, Christina, and it just was not a good fit. And I like literally today was wrestling with who to choose. And I know there's this girl who triggers the fuck out of me. And like, I know she's better than me at a lot of things, and is super outgoing. And like all of these fears come up with my control. Like, I need to have access to my clients. I don't want her to have access to my clients. Like, what if she goes in and she's cooler than me and she steals my client? Like that whole spiral you can go down with your business. Like, it's so hard to like come back down to earth and be like, okay, this is something I need to grow, and I have to let go at some point or it's never going to get better.
Yeah. Well, and even just like the energy of the business itself, right? Like, and this is where people feel like they're dragging. Like, I have multiple friends who this has come up where it's like they have a whole team and they do that thing where they kind of hire down, right? And then they have to micromanage everybody. And then it feels like they're energetically spread so thin because they feel like they're the power source of the whole business versus continuing to hire people who are their own power source. And then it's like you light up the whole business and it grows, right? But that's thinking about the energy of the business and like what's actually going to help it grow and expand. It can't just be your energy, right? It's like, I'm hiring somebody, so I'm getting more horsepower. So I'm getting more growth, more expansion out, not so that I'm still the only one expanding. This person is just like next to me. You see the difference?
That's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Well, it's a really common one. And I think this comes up in like, maybe we do a whole other episode on communication, but like, I think it's super relevant here because this is like a main way I see this playing out, like with managing people. I know I got in a position where I was spending all my time managing people and then like kind of redoing a lot of their tasks. And I was like, I'm unable to do anything I need to do. Like I just crumbled because what was happening was I was spending my whole day managing people and then redoing a bunch of tasks and like checking up on things. Like, did that get done? And then I would have to do my tasks like 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. Right. And I was like, no, this is my job. So these 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. tasks are like, should be my daytime job. And like, I
should be getting handled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so like streamlining communication and really realizing like, where is the management coming from? But also like, where can I have less management if I do better with communication, right? Like having tools to keep it clear. And like, does everybody need to be on every call? Like, that's the thing with the trust as well. Like for me, I have learned because I used to be on every call with everything and it actually just totally screwed up the communication. And then I was like overly involved in everything and there are too many opinions, and it actually works better if like there's one person just updating me, right? And then like the people who are directly relevant to the task, like they're the ones managing, like they're the ones handling it, right? And then I'm just told, because otherwise there's like too much involvement and you're not letting go, right? Like if you are a CEO on every single call, like that doesn't even make sense, right? It's like anybody else in the business being on all of your calls. Like you have different positions so that different things are getting done.
You have more bodies to accomplish more at once. And if you're all doing the same things, that's not happening.
Right.
Like you add more hands, and then what people do is they put all the hands on the same thing. When the point is like you
Oh,
add
great.
more hands so that you can do more things, you know?
Exactly.
When you put it that way, it makes you feel so dumb.
It's not. It's just like, I mean, like that was just like such a big growth experience for me. And I like people do this once you like build your business, right? And like get to a certain level, like all of the issues of people going from like 6 to 7 figures or 7 to 8, it's all energy stuff. It's all like mindset stuff. It's all like these tweaks you make. It's not this huge new business strategy. Like that's not the difference, but it's like, I know like my coach is telling me, she's like, I had to catch myself because I found myself, I was being in a managing role. Like instead of like being the CEO here, and I've had to like just make adjustments. And she's like, and you know how that shows up is that people started messaging me directly about scheduling. And I was like, why are you messaging me when you know I don't do scheduling? She's like, because I was in that manager energy. So people like came to me, right? And then it just messes up the whole scheduling thing, right? Or it's like, oh my God, scheduling, right? If you have multiple people on the calendar, like it's like, well, why did you book that then? And like, I don't know, we double booked that. Like it just becomes a nightmare.
No. Yeah.
It becomes a nightmare. But I think the communication piece is really important, right? Like we had that come up.
Streamlining it.
Yeah. we just had that come up. It's like, why are we making more calls than necessary? And I see in a lot of businesses, like I remember I had this one company I worked for, but this is really common. It's like we spent probably like 5 hours a day on meetings. And I'm like, when are we actually doing work?
That
Like
was, yeah,
I had to do my work when
literally
I
my
got
last
home.
job. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm like, when we could totally streamline this communication, and it's like having consistency with your communication, right? Like having regular meetings, but not so much so that it's just like a waste of time. And do you really need a whole meeting to communicate something quick, or could that be sent in another way? You know what I mean? Or like
I
the
also feel
emails.
like that's another form of control. Like at my old job, people they'd felt the need to have meetings with us on a weekly basis as a crutch, and there was literally nothing new to talk about. It's like I could have sent you a quick email with an update of what I've done in the last week, but instead we're sitting here like twiddling our thumbs because there's nothing much new. And that's a waste of time and energy for everyone, like all 8 people involved on the call. And instead, in the meantime, we could have been doing stuff to actually help you propel your business forward.
Yeah. Or you just like I could easily just create things. If somebody called a random meeting, cool, I can talk.
Yeah.
Like there's always something to talk about. But I think that's something for me that I've definitely struggled with having a balance, because I tend to lean more on the like less meeting side. Because of past experiences, which is like way too many. And I'm like, this is so inefficient. And I'm somebody like, I don't know, I'm just more of an independent person, you know? And most people around me are like that. So it's usually not needed. But then I see the value in like, you know, some things it's easier to like stay up to date. Like we've had this conversation. It's like just getting an update on like what got done, right? Like what got done, what didn't. So I'm aware of what's going on. There's definitely a balance there, but that's where like those different task management systems are really helpful, just to see
Visibility.
Yeah, visibility, what's going on. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think there's a lot of self-responsibility, right? Because then you have people who they'll tell me, like, yeah, I just like I am my coworkers all day, right? Like they're just like, there's so much I aming of coworkers. Or I have I don't know, one of my friends, she's an entrepreneur, and they have a team of about like 6 or 7. And whenever I'm with her, like we spent a weekend together a couple weeks ago, and it's like her whole team is just like constant messages to her. And I was like, it's like Sunday.
Lack of boundaries.
I'm like, first of all, it's the weekend, but second of all, like, is this how even if that's what it's like on a weekday, that's like, I'm like, how do you get any work done when you're always responding to people? And she's like, I don't. She's like, that's why I'm so tired. And she was like very stressed out. And we had this whole talk. I'm like, you need boundaries. And it's like not productive for them. If they have to ask you a question every 5 minutes, like that's not productive.
They're never
going to
learn on their own either that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like then nobody's getting anything done. You're literally just texting each other back and forth.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, that's where it is valuable to be like, this is our allotted time. Like, hey, we have 15 minutes and everything gets covered there. And it forces people to be organized, like have an agenda. These are the points I want to cover. And like not check, like, it's like, no, I'm not even checking that at these hours. Is there anything else for you guys with communication that you have found is helpful? Streamlining?
Abbey, how do you manage it with your clients?
I have some clients that are super hands off and some that are not. But I definitely offer like if they want to be a little more in control, because I'm not trying to change how they do things. I'm kind of adjusting to them. Some clients just want to check in on Voxer every once in a while and be like, hey, is this uploaded? Whatever. And then some want a weekly call with like, okay, what are we tackling this week? So it's kind of just offered as an option to them. But I find that like, again, that trust situation, like the more we work together, the more they're like, oh, we've had the same meeting every week about my like onboarding process. I don't need to have this every week. Like we kind of know how it's going. So it's kind of just an adjustment thing as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the other piece is it is kind of shocking to me. Like it's because I'm just the way I am, right? So that's like my barometer. But like it has surprised me how many people don't do things unless somebody's looking over their shoulder. Like there are a good amount of people, honestly.
Yeah. I feel like that's hard for us to remember because all 3 of us have generator in us. And I feel like that's very out of our nature, but it's so true. And I've had people underneath me before at old jobs that's very much the case.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Or
back to your
even
point
if
about
people are trained.
self-responsibility.
People
Yeah.
are trained for that too, right? In certain jobs, like let's say they're in some of 9 to 5 and then they like switch to this other job. Like if you've been trained, like, oh, I only do something if this person tells me, right? Or they're pushing me, then you get used to that. So I don't know.
That's a whole other world you go
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. But I think that's also another reason why a lot of entrepreneurs have trouble. Like, I have a friend who just hired somebody and it went horribly wrong. He put all this money into it and he was like, this guy didn't do anything. Like all these things I thought he was getting done, nothing got done. Right. And now he's realizing it. And now he's like trying to hire somebody else. And I can tell he's like little, like overly protective now because first of all, he doesn't even want to hire somebody else because he thinks everybody's going to be like that. So he's like, well, what's the point of me even hiring somebody if I have to redo everything? Right. Or if I have to spend so much time making sure it's getting done, it's faster if I just do it myself. And I'm like, not everybody's like that. Right. It's like, you kind of have to learn. I mean, there's something to spotting that out, but like,
do you think it's like an energy thing too? Like you're continuing to attract in people that are requiring you to step in. I mean, I guess that goes back to what you said before about people kind of like subconsciously hiring people they need to manage, but it's like, it may just be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're not acting like someone that doesn't have the capacity to step in, then you're not going to attract someone that actually allows you to step away.
Yeah, totally. Well, and there's a balance where I think especially a lot of new business owners, they want to spend less money. So they'll like go for somebody who has lower rates because their business is newer. And that can work really well sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't because sometimes that person is the type of person that needs a bit
motivated
more
sometimes.
Yeah, or just
they're getting paid
like,
less.
They might be newer too, so they might need a little more like, I don't know, it's just different because when you're first starting sometimes. So it's like that balance between, because there are also people who have more experience who charge like out of control rates, right? Like, and it's like knowing that balance, right? And I found myself many times in business, like, it's like, okay, there's this person that is like, I'm like, I totally believe in their value, but that's just like way out of the ballpark. And then there's this person, but I don't think that they can fully show up to this. Like, I'm like, I feel like I'm going to be in manager energy. So I will say no to both. And I'm like, I know I'm going to find somebody who is exactly what I want. Right. And there's that balance as well. Like just thinking about, but when you continue to hire somebody with less expensive rates, like, and that's what you're looking for, like pay attention to that because there's also like the quality.
Yeah.
Right? You're paying for the experience.
Important piece.
Yeah. And you really have to look at yourself too. Like that's something I've realized is like reflecting on the things that I missed or that I didn't see, like your friend, like maybe he didn't realize he was compromising something in what he did. And like, you can't just hold on to that and be like, I don't trust anyone. Like, this is my experience and I'm going to hold on to that. To look inward and kind of change your perspective and your approach.
Yeah, totally. Well, and it's like what we were talking about in the last episode with that mindset of a lot of people, they struggle with this idea of like investing, right? Investing in your business. And this person in particular, like I can tell he's thinking about it like, I'm just getting rid of this money, right? Like people think and it's as opposed to I'm putting this money into my business, I'm getting more horsepower, more hands, so I can actually reach more people and make more money. Like that's the point. And I totally understand if people are like scarred from previous experiences because I have put a lot of money into people and like they didn't do anything. And then so it felt like, where did that go? Right. But then it's about finding the people where you do see that return. It's like, okay, I'm putting this money in, this person is really performing and they're really helping me to expand. And you see like it is an investment in your business, but that's part of the growth. And that's what blocks a lot of people because a lot of people are not willing to invest in their business again. Right. They won't make an investment over like $500. And it's like, I mean, at a certain point, for me to really scale, like I had to put in a lot more money than I was comfortable with, knowing like, okay, I am deciding that my business is going to grow. Right. And so there's a balance there. It's not like, it's like, you still need to be responsible with it, and like look at your budget and what's realistic, obviously, because you don't want to like screw somebody over. But I see a lot of people getting stuck in that, like they are not willing to invest. And you can really block yourself in that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're coming from a place of lack from the beginning.
Totally.
You know?
Totally. It's the scarcity. So they like you
Mhm.
cap yourself in that way. Right. And it's like,
Yeah.
and I will say, like, I see a lot of people, I'll speak like from the coaching space, who compare their businesses to these other people who have been in business for years and have a whole team behind them. Right. And it's like, and they're like, why can't I do all these? It's like, that person has like 20 people supporting them. So yeah, they can make a million programs, and
They've invested in
Yeah.
themselves time and time again to get to that place.
yeah,
Mhm.
like if you look at, and then you have people who they're like, they realize that. So then they start hiring people, right? But it's like, if you look at the people who do that successfully, right? If you think of somebody like a personal brand, right? Most of them are literally just like the talent, and everybody else is running and doing everything else. And that person, like, because their whole time is spent just like showing up, like showing face, right? And like anything video, anything they have to do. But other than that, like most of those people, if you actually look at their businesses, they're like not even involved, right? And I know for me, that was like a huge duh moment when I realized that, right? And I was like, wow, I'm trying to do all these things. And then you actually get to know the back end of these businesses. Like, for example, a lot of doctors, like a lot of functional medicine doctors who have like bigger brands, like a lot of them aren't seeing patients anymore, right? And a lot of them are not even running their business. They're more of the personality, right?
Mhm.
A lot of these people don't even write their own books. You know, so it's like I think there's a lot of that, like, projection, and we just assume people are doing everything. Not most people are not doing everything, right? A lot of people, it's like it's a machine, that the business is a machine. You have so much support. You have people playing their own roles. You have somebody leading marketing and leading operations and leading outreach, and like, and then everything else, like all of those positions are filled. And so I think that's really important as well for people to think about, because that's a really common place people cap themselves, is they're trying to stay in everything, trying to be like, oh, I see so-and-so doing this. And it's like, well, so-and-so isn't getting in the weeds everywhere that you are. Like, they're literally just being the talent and being the face and letting everything else go.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's my rant there. It's important to realize. It's just a lot of comparison, but
Yeah. And like in ungrounded ways, like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Let yourself be supported. Let yourself be supported.
Welcome it in.
Release to receive.
Totally. All right. Well, let's wrap up there. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for listening. And if you did find this episode helpful, definitely share it. Tag us on social media at the podcast connector so we can repost and say thank you. And if you have not already, please take a second to leave a rating and a review on iTunes. It really, really helps to support the show. It makes a huge difference. Any podcast you listen to that you haven't left an iTunes rating and review for, it literally takes like 30 seconds, and every host will appreciate it so much. So definitely do that. Give a little positive energy and you'll receive a lot back. And yeah, we hope you have a great day. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will talk to you next episode.